Councillors and all those who are present in the chamber and those watching online, I've been delegated the role of chairperson for today's meeting, and I would like to declare the meeting open at 9:30 a.m. I'd like to acknowledge the Quandamooka people, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, and pay my respect to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians who are present. I would like to remind you all that this meeting is being recorded in audio and video, as well as being live streamed online. Councillors are reminded that parliamentary privilege does not extend to this chamber, as it does for state and federal parliamentarians, and you are reminded to be cognizant of this in any comments which you may make during the course of this meeting. I would also like to remind councillors to use the microphone when speaking, and for any councillors or officers who are attending virtually to please use the mute button when not speaking. In the event of an evacuation, I would ask that you remain calm and follow my directions. The emergency exit is through the gallery doors on your left and down the stairwell to exit onto Bloomfield Street. All members of the public present at a meeting must, not without the prior approval of the chairperson, make any audio or video recording or take any photographs. Remain quiet and not disrupt the meeting in any way, not bring into the meeting any signs, placards or items that may cause a hazard or interfere with any person present. Be suitably dressed and turn all mobile devices to silent mode and leave the meeting to take any calls. As chairperson, it is my responsibility to warn a member of the public present at a meeting who is not complying with any of these requirements and may, with or without such warning, require the person to leave the meeting and not return for such period as the chairperson decides. This period may include future meetings. We'll move on to leaves of absence. Councillors, recent legislative changes mean that we no longer need to resolve or to approve participation via teleconferencing, noting though that Councillor Julie Tolte is online today. We will now proceed to vote on a leave of absence for Mayor Mitchell. May I have a mover and a seconder that a leave of absence is granted for Mayor Jos Mitchell for today's meeting? Moved Councillor Hewlett, seconded Councillor Boglari. I put the vote. Councillor Tolte?
For.
That's carried unanimously. I'd now like to invite Pastor Beck Hamilton of Beacon Church to lead council in a brief devotion segment.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's an honour to be here again with you. And as always, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your leadership in our city, for your service to our city. I know you work hard, you're extremely dedicated, but it's often a very thankless task. So I do want to thank you for that. And this morning, I just felt that I wanted you all to think for a moment why you got into your positions of leadership in the first place. Why is it that you put yourself up for council or took on a role at council? I'm going to presume, I believe that you probably did it because you wanted to make a difference in this city. I believe that you probably love this city of the Redlands like I do, that you love the people of this city, and that you felt you wanted to use your skills and your gifts and your talents to make a lasting impact on this city. And but the reality is that leadership is hard. Leadership is hard and it's messy, and the very people that you felt called to serve often end up being your harshest critics, right? I mean, I have Facebook. I see how horrible our city can be to you all. So I actually feel like I want to apologise on behalf of the people of this city for sometimes how negative they can be towards the leadership. But it's hard, it's messy, and it's thankless at times, and there can be a lot of criticism. And what I felt I wanted to share this morning is, I guess, that we can start out with great intentions, just like my husband and I in leading a church in this city. You can start out with the best of intentions, but after a few knocks and beatings, and when the criticism gets heavy, and honestly, sometimes even the abuse can start, and you start to, if you're not careful, kind of forget why you got into it in the first place, why you took on the role. And you started out with good intentions, with pure motives. And as I said, once those knocks and those beatings come without realising it, you can start to, I guess, fall into the trap of maybe having the wrong motives or the wrong agendas, or starting to care more about what you need and want rather than the people that you've been called to serve. And I know when that happens for me, really in all my leadership journey, I find that I have to go to the Bible, to the Word of God, to get my instructions on how to lead. It really is the best place that I've found to get advice for how to lead an organisation. And I wanted to share with you today, one of the verses that I read often, and it's a challenge every time I read it. It's in the book of Philippians, and it says this. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." And actually that passage goes on to talk about how Jesus was the ultimate example of that he came in humility. It actually says that he didn't consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. If you think about it, he could have had a lot of fun with that power and that title of God. But it says, no, he came to earth, made himself nothing, made himself a servant, and ultimately ended up laying down his life for his people, for the world. And even when Jesus was on earth, he told his followers, "I haven't come to be served, but I've come to serve." And I sort of thought about it this morning and felt I wanted to bring that encouragement and that challenge, I guess, to all of us, and not even just to everyone in this room that's been called to serve and lead this city, but actually even to those watching online, really to the whole city. I've been thinking about how different our city would look if all of us actually had that mindset, if all of us lived in a way that said, I'm here to serve others. I'm not here to be served. I'm here to honestly lay my life down if I have to. I'm here to consider the interests of others rather than my own interests. I just thought, what a city that would be. How amazing would that city be to live in if all of us, and we know it does trickle from the top, but if we all lived like that, how different would this city look? I honestly think it would transform our city. And it's the sort of city that I would want to live in. And so this morning, as I close, I just wanted to pray over all of you and pray over our city, really, that God would do a transformation in all of our hearts, that we would have that mindset that we want to come in humility to serve others, to consider the interests of others above our own, to have pure motives and pure agendas. Because I think if our hearts all got transformed, then it would transform our city. And so would you pray with me as I close this morning? Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I want to thank you for the challenging words that we've read this morning from your scripture. Lord, I'm thankful this morning for the reminder to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but rather in humility to put the interests of others ahead of our own interests. And Lord, I pray that every person in this city, not just our leaders, but every person in this city would live like that, Lord, and that in turn we would just see an amazing transformation in our city as we came with that mindset that we're here to serve. And Lord, I want to thank you for each of the councillors in the room, and Lord, all the staff, the council staff here today that lead and serve our city, Lord, so tirelessly. Lord, I want you to bless them. I ask you to bless them. And Lord, I ask you to protect them. Lord, protect their hearts from the anger and the criticism that can come their way. And Lord, I want you to help them to lead with humility and wisdom. And it's in the mighty name of Jesus that I pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one condolence today. Councillor Peter Mitchell, I understand you have a condolence you wish to present.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the public, on behalf of Redland City Council, first up, I'd like to acknowledge the recent passing of Richard Cale, a valued and respected member of this organisation. Richard, or Dick, joined council in 2015 and made a significant contribution across a number of senior roles. This included acting appointments as Executive Officer, Organisational Services, Group Manager, City Operations, and on several occasions as Chief Financial Officer. Substantively, Richard served as Service Manager, Business Partnering within Financial Services, and later as Procurement Service Manager. Through these roles, Richard worked across the organisation and had a positive impact on many colleagues. Richard was a dedicated professional who served council and our community with integrity, commitment and care. He was widely respected for the way he conducted himself and for the professionalism that he brought to his work. This respect is clearly reflected in the many tributes shared by colleagues as they reflect on their time working with him. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Richard was known for his kindness and generosity. He was a compassionate and empathetic person who listened deeply and made others feel heard and feel valued. Conversations with Richard often left a lasting impression, marked by his thoughtfulness, really calm presence and quiet wisdom. Richard's passing is a significant loss to Council and to all those who had the privilege of working with him. So on behalf of the Mayor, councillors and the organisation, we extend our sincere condolences to Richard's family, friends and loved ones, and to our colleagues who are mourning the loss of a respected colleague and friend. Council gratefully acknowledges Richard's service and the positive contribution he made during this time with us, and he will be remembered with respect, affection and fondness. So that's the initial thing from Council, and I know the CEO and all staff really have felt Richard's loss. But I want to move on to Richard, the family man, friend and community leader, and he'll love them. I'm starting to cry now. He loved to see a grown man cry. He really did, he was he would love the fact that I'm doing this in public now. Richard was above all else a deeply loved family man and a loyal friend. He was a devoted son to Jim and Margaret, a proud and loving husband to Marianne, and an extraordinary father to Sarah, Laura and Emma. His family was at the centre of his life, and the care, encouragement and respect he showed them was reflected in the strong, grounded and capable people that they are today. They really are a great family. Those who grew up with Richard recall a spirited and energetic childhood, from his days in Glen Waverley racing billy carts through quiet streets to a lifelong enthusiasm for adventure and connection. That sense of energy, purpose and curiosity stayed with him throughout his life. Richard embraced life with enthusiasm and humour. He had a well-known love for V8 Holden cars, starting with the mighty Kingswood, ending in Commodores and beyond. He loved motorbikes, water skiing. He loved the North Melbourne Football Club. He carried with him fond memories of his time in scouting, including his fondness for a campfire, often a very large one, fuelled by kerosene. This reflected both his sense of fun and his desire to bring people together. That same enthusiasm extended to his love of a party, often a themed one and a dress-up, with Foo Fighters playing, plenty of air guitar and karaoke, good company and more large fires, sometimes in a pizza oven, sometimes just on the ground. Professionally, Richard was a qualified accountant who built a respected career after graduating from Swinburne University and then relocating to Brisbane with first-tier accounting firms. He appreciated structure and clarity, and this was expressed through well-prepared plans and spreadsheets. This was often balanced with his creativity, practical problem solving and an openness to new ideas. At home, he was known as someone who'd fix things, who thought innovatively and who approached challenges with courage and determination. Richard was also an accomplished, passionate athlete, a 16-time Ironman triathlon finisher. He embraced the extraordinary physical and mental challenge of that 3.8k swim, 180 kilometre ride and a marathon run, not once, but time and time again. Yet for Richard, these achievements were never about the personal recognition. They were about encouraging others. That number of club Ironman finishes in our club, the Sharks, now sits at over 140 individual Ironman finishes. Richard was number 2. I'm number 53. As past president and life member of Sharks Triathlon Club, Richard played a defining role in shaping its culture. one grounded in respect, inclusion, and a strong sense of family. He was instrumental in supporting and mentoring athletes of all ages and abilities, and in fostering opportunities, including for vision-impaired athletes, to participate and succeed. His quiet leadership helped build a club that is now nationally known and respected. Richard coached and inspired countless individuals, including elite athletes, as well as those taking on their very first challenge. He had a rare ability to instill this belief in others, to help people see that goals, which once seemed impossible, were within reach. He did this not through words alone, but by example, demonstrating discipline, humility, respect, and generosity, and more spreadsheets. More spreadsheets with training and nutrition plans. Richard was more than a coach, he was a mentor, a guide, and a friend. He had an unwavering belief in people, and he gave freely of his time and encouragement to help others succeed. Rich Cahill's contribution to his family, his colleagues in this room and throughout the organisation, and the broader community was profound. He will be remembered not only for what he achieved, but for more so for how he lived, with integrity, kindness, humour, and a genuine care for others. He was in every sense simply a good human. He was my friend and will be deeply missed and long remembered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. I haven't been made aware of any recognitions of achievements, councillors. Right. So we now move on to the confirmation of minutes. May I have a mover and seconder that the minutes of the general meeting held on the 15th of April 2026 be confirmed? Moved Councillor Hughes, seconded Councillor Rendels. Are there any comments or correctness of the minutes, Councillor Hughes? Would you like to sum up at all? No. Okay. I'll put the motion. Councillor Tolte?
For.
That's carried unanimously. We have not received any applications for public participation today, councillors, so we'll move on to petitions and presentations. Councillors, we have two petitions to be presented today. Councillor Golay, over to you to present the first petition and move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. The first petition is from residents. Says the petition calls on Redland City Council to introduce speed bumps on Sylvie Street, Thornlands, due to concern on hooning, speeding and e-bike, bike and scooter road safety in a move to enhance road safety for both local residents and commuters. The petition is of an operational nature and will be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer for consideration.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Second by Councillor Colley. I'll put the motion. Councillor Tolte?
For.
That's carried unanimously. Councillor Rendels, you also have a petition to present and a motion to move?
Yes, this petition is for a footpath on Orchard Drive between Autumnwood Avenue and Paperbark Street in Mount Cotton. The petition request is that we need a safe way to walk to and from both the bus stop and the Orchard Drive Park playground. There is currently no flat pathway to safely reach either, especially for young families with prams or those with mobility challenges. I'm an amputee, that's the petitioner, and have sadly fallen multiple times along this stretch, once tripping on tree debris hidden in the grass and another time in a pothole in the uneven ground. Walking on the road is just as dangerous with debris that can easily cause trips and cars often speeding along this straight section without regard for safety. As a result, many people cannot safely use the bus stop or access the park, particularly those using prams or mobility aids. Installing a proper footpath would benefit the entire community and greatly improve access for those who already face challenges. Better accessibility will also encourage more people to use public transport and stay active within the community. It is wonderful to see so many active families at Mount Cotton, and this would build on that encouraging families to be active and enjoy our suburb. It would also support new and growing families to safely access local spaces. While other areas of Mount Cotton have had upgrades in recent years, this older section feels overlooked. I move that this petition is of an operational nature and be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer for consideration.
Sorry. Seconded by Councillor Bishop. I'll put the motion. Councillor Talty?
For.
That's carried unanimously. I've not been advised of any presentations, and I've not been advised of any motion to alter the order of business. So we move on to matters outstanding from previous general meetings. So the CEO will now give an update on the matters outstanding from previous general meetings. Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. There are 6 items that are outstanding from previous general meetings. Item number 1, 9.1, is the draft Birkdale Community Precinct Local Government Infrastructure Designation Consultation Report. A report will come to a future meeting of Council. Item 9.2, the Birkdale Community Precinct. A report will come to a future meeting of Council. Item 9.3, the Cleveland Town Centre Revitalisation Project Update. A report will come to a future meeting of Council. Item 9.4, potential property disposals, Capalaba. A report will come to a future meeting of Council. Item 9.5, the request to amend Council's animal management laws regarding miniature goats. A report will come to a future meeting of Council. Item 9.6, the notice of motion from Councillor Jason Colley regarding customer experience policy for residents affected by persistent water supply issues. A report will come to a future meeting of Council. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hughes, you have a question?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the CEO. When you give your updates to us here at the general meeting and to the wider community, and we're consistently letting the community know that a report is coming, I think that underlines the fact that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with our officers, and it doesn't happen miraculously on that morning. So when you've read through those items, which is so important to our community, just reiterating that there is a lot of work going on behind the scenes for those items. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hughes, for the observations. You're absolutely correct. A lot of these items take considerable work, consideration, expertise, development, and we make sure that we have the correct and full and proper information to provide to you when we bring the reports back for Council consideration. So thank you for acknowledging the work that the officers are doing.
Thank you. Councillor Bishop, you had a question?
Just in regard to that, and thank you very much for the updates through the Chair to the CEO. In relation to the 9.2 Birkdale Community Precinct, which is the remnants of what was a notice of motion that I brought to Council, was eventually moved by another councillor. But there are a number of matters that are addressed in that request for further information. We've been getting updates on part of that, but I'm just looking to get the assurance that the other broader aspects of that report are still being worked on, because I'm seeing elements being reported back to us, but I'm just looking more broadly just for clarification that that other work is still progressing in regard to those other broader matters relating to that particular site.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Bishop, for the question. And absolutely, you're correct. There is significant work that has been done. There are briefings that are provided to councillors as and when information is available. And the motion that is in front of you there has a significant number of parts. So to be able to close out that outstanding action item, there is significant work that needs to be progressed by officers, and that does take considerable time. What I can assure you is that this is captured on the general meeting agenda every month, and every month we make sure that we provide an update to you through the fact that the report is coming. So it is very clearly on our radar. It is very clearly on the community and council radar, because it is reported on every month through the general meetings. But thank you for your question.
Thank you very much, and thanks to officers for all the work.
Thank you. Councillors, we'll move on to declaration of prescribed conflict of interest and declarable conflict of interest. Councillors are reminded of their responsibilities in relation to a councillor's prescribed conflict of interest and declarable conflict of interest at a meeting. Details of these responsibilities are also outlined in the agenda. Please be reminded that all interests need to be declared at a statutory meeting of council. This means any prescribed or declarable conflict of interest relating to an item being discussed at a non-statutory meeting needs to be declared at the general or special meeting preceding the non-statutory meeting or workshop. A potential list of items to be discussed at all non-statutory meetings are made available to councillors with each workshop agenda before the preceding general meeting so that this can be achieved. These declarations can also be made at any time throughout the meeting. Does anyone need to declare a conflict of interest? No. Okay. There are no Merrill minutes for today's meeting. We'll move on to item 12.1, reports from the Office of the CEO, and that's the External Service and Efficiency Review Outcome Report. I believe we have an alternate motion. Councillor Boglari?
Yes, thank you. If it can come up on the screen.
Councillor, would you like to just outline what the alternate is that you have proposed?
Yep,
there?
so the motion remains as in the report, except for an additional dot point has been added. I did send through a copy last night, which the officers had done. I wasn't totally confident that that was going to achieve what councillors had discussed on Monday. So I have changed dot point 2 to that council will consider the review outcome report recommendations and analyse for actions at future briefings. I believe this will give more certainty to councillors that we'll be able to do the future works that we were intending.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that alternate motion? Councillor Hughes seconding that. Councillor Boglari, would you like to speak to the motion, being mindful that the attachment to that report is confidential?
Yes, thank you. This review, it's very in-depth. It came about from a Mayoral Minute from Mayor Joss Mitchell in March 25. It is a very thorough external report by a reputable consultant, that being Deloitte's. Page 26 of the agenda report that everyone has publicly states their key findings. Naturally, there's a lot more information in the review itself, but that at present is remaining confidential due to, as the CEO advised councillors on Monday, due to legal responsibilities. But page 26 does state a very short summary of the key findings from the review, and I'd like to ensure that improvements in this area are going to be taken. And that means we have to do actions as well as consideration and analyse. The actions are required. So I therefore seek support for this alternate motion to ensure these future works will be occurring.
Thank you, Councillor Boglari. Do you have any speakers against? No. Any questions, noting that the attachment is confidential? Councillor Colley?
Yeah, I just had a question maybe for the CEO through you, Chair. Point 2, which states recommendations and analysis for actions at future briefings. I just wanted to clarify that there won't be any actions taken at a councillor briefing. Any actions would need to come back to a council meeting to be adopted. Any recommendations from this external report? I'm just a little bit confused by the wording there. I'm not sure if describing future briefings there is really transparent with the community, that the intention is that there will be decisions made in a council meeting, not in a future briefing, which isn't public in any sense.
Thank you, Councillor Colley.
Thank you, Councillor Colley. That is an interesting question that you raise, because this has been a parcel of work looking at a service and efficiency review. Any matters that are outside of existing policy or position or operational business as usual would come to council for a decision. But there are significant, given that the entire organisation has been reviewed, there are things that are purely operational that the organisation can and should progress with without it coming back for a decision of council. But as the information will be presented at future briefings, if council is of the view that they want particular matters to come forward for a report to council, then that can occur. But I'd probably strongly counsel that, that we don't constrict the organisation to be able to lean into change or opportunity as and where it arises. Some of the principles in the report are things that council's been working on regardless. So I wouldn't want to frustrate our progression to lean into innovation and great opportunities by having everything come back to a council report. But we certainly are mindful of the desire for communication, and councillors will be fully briefed through those briefings.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Louise. Councillor Bishop?
Yes, thank you. I absolutely agree in the spirit of continuous improvement that there is a lot going on, and I certainly welcome this review, which is the first time in the 14 years that I've been here that this has come about. So I think it's a really important revision. Just a question with regard to acknowledging the confidential and commercial sensitive nature of matters within the report. This is a question through you, Chair, to the CEO. Can officers just advise where there will be opportunities in future to publicly communicate the broader themes, reform priorities and improvement pathways that have been identified? The report is for noting, as it is proposed, but just is there a way for elements to be communicated in future as we proceed? Can you give any thoughts on that at this point?
Thank you, Councillor Bishop.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bishop, for the question. This report is an external service and efficiency review report that was done by an external consultant, and it's been brought to you for noting because Council is still to unpack that report and to decide what it would like to do moving forward. So those future decisions are in your hands in terms of what recommendations you'd like to proceed with, what time frame you'd like to consider that in, and noting the ongoing operational work. We have a corporate plan, which is our head of power document that the officers work to, and items within our operational plan that Council also sets is where we communicate with the community about works that are progressing. And we also share good news through media releases, through information on our website of things that we're working our way through. There are countless opportunities and initiatives that the organisation does on a day-to-day basis where great things happen, and we try to get that message out as frequently as we can, and we encourage councillors to share those good news stories because unfortunately sometimes only the negative gets reported and not the great things that the officers do. So we look forward to leaning into the work that is out of this review. As I said, it's not familiar with the work that the officers have been doing over many, many years, and a lot of the efficiencies and effectiveness that has occurred over many years has come from the great work that the officers have done on an ongoing continuous improvement basis. As I mentioned, we will have briefings for councillors and we'll look for your guidance on any aspects that you think need to be communicated more fully. But it is business as usual for a council and an organisation, and we are getting on with doing the business of council.
Thank you. And I acknowledge that the purpose of the report is for Council to note the report. In my view, I would like us to adopt or to accept the report, but I am looking forward to the empowerment going forward and the proactive themes, especially along continuous improvement where we can have efficiencies and effectiveness for Council ongoing and on the behalf of community. I'd also like to acknowledge the work of officers who've contributed to this report.
Councillor Bishop, did you have a question?
I think the I did have other questions, but I think the CEO's done enough to touch on that, and I'm looking forward to the actions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. And yes, I'll acknowledge all the work that the CEO and all the council officers and the councillors that have put input into this in order to get the report to where it is today. And there is a lot more work to be done. Change doesn't happen overnight. Change takes time. So although that there are probably things in this report that we may want to see happen straight away, it's not possible to do all of those. So we will continue to work with the organisation, and the organisation will continue to work with us on what recommendations can be rolled out sooner rather than later in order to drive efficiencies and save ratepayers some dollars. With that, I'll put the motion if there's no other questions, councillors. Oh, sorry, Councillor Boglari, yes, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I just, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to address what Councillor Colley mentioned with the transparency to the community. Totally agree. Future briefings was actually the wording from the officers, which is why I held it in there. But I also presumed, as the CEO said, anything which isn't of an operational matter will be coming to council at a general meeting, so there will be that transparency and accountability. I too would just like to acknowledge the amount of work that officers have put into this report. To quote a very old saying, it's a breath of fresh air. I think it's a change, and out of this will come continual improvements. And so well done to the CEO and everybody for actioning the mayoral minute to this point, and I look forward to these positive outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor Boglari. With that, I'll put the motion. Councillor Tolte?
For.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to 13.1, the April 2026 monthly financial report. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation or any other motion? Councillor Boglari? You'd like to move the officer's recommendation? Yes, a seconder, thanks. Councillor Hewlett. Councillor Boglari, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The monthly financial reports are a tool to monitor progress of planned capital works for the year, expenditure, revenue and council's financial position. It is, as we always say, a point in time so we can consider concerns or favourable positions that may require further investigation as we work through the year to that final financial and delivery position, which is reported in the annual report, which always makes a good read. An example of this monitoring is the actions taken in the budget review, where council revises the original adopted budget, such as a reduction to OPEX deficit and reprioritising of capital project delivery. Revenue collected at this point of time, such as when rates are paid, impacts these interim results, and this can be seen in this report with the present year-to-date's operating result of 59.58 million due to rates and utility charges being included in April's revenue. This forecast is temporary, with the end-of-year operating results remaining forecast at 8.2 million per revised budget, noting that this shifts marginally through the proposed second budget review. For interest, revenue and expense changes are clarified on page 13 and 14, with a clarifying graph on page 5 of 14, and these are a lot of the changes which our finance team have recently implemented to make the reading of financials a little bit more interesting and easier. CapEx is behind budget by 28 million, with the impact of the challenging times we are seeing in the resource, supply chain, material availability being greatly noticed by our staff. The graph on page 6 of 14 illustrates the capital expenditure with a list of notable projects where council spent expenditure. To explain works, I did question the 2.1 million being spent at Wynham Creek, and it's my understanding that this was prior to the recent changes with the Queensland Government now doing the project. Debt increased by 27 million as part of the council's capital program. Debt is only drawn down when council projects are occurring. Therefore, council recently didn't draw down the total amount of planned debt due to projects which were previously planned not commencing but being carried over. The environment for resourcing materials and construction builds and road costs and asset maintenance is certainly remaining a challenge for our council and every other council, and responsible decisions are required to ensure critical infrastructure and maintenance is at a priority at this time with our increased budgetary constraints. And I will now ask our CFO to also speak to the report through the chair, please.
Thank you, Councillor Boglari. Over to you, our Executive Group Manager for Financial Services and Chief Financial Officer, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, thank you, Councillor Boglari, to speak further to the monthly financial report. If I turn to the executive summary and the key performance indicators, which are page 3 of 14 of the report, these provide a great summary of what the financial results contain. As we can see in the executive summary, Council has met or exceeded all of its favourable, it has a status of favourable on all of those key financial results, either exceeding or meeting those financial results in those areas. I do note that we have, it does also reflect though that we have the underspend in the capital works expenditure and we have higher cash balances than planned, and that was largely due to the receipt of cash capital grants, which we have the cash, although we may not necessarily be able to recognise those grants as revenue, as they are tied to delivering specific capital works. In moving to the key performance indicators, Council again has met or exceeded all of these indicators with the exception of the asset sustainability ratio. This has continued to track in the right trajectory month on month, and April does reflect approximately a 2% uplift from the previous March report. If I turn, just some highlights from the Statement of Comprehensive Income, which is our next financial statement. I do note that the second budget review is the next agenda item for today's meeting, and it will reflect the permanent variances that we have been talking about over the prior months. So where we have greater revenue than originally forecast through the current revised budget, that's mainly in our fees income. So that reflects development applications, plumbing assessment and plan ceiling fees, and we will be recognising the additional revenue through the second budget review. There are also favourable variance with interest revenue and grants and subsidies and contribution lines as well. So again, these will also be recognised through our second budget review as an uptake in our revenue, recurrent revenue. With the grants and subsidies, you can see that variance that we have here, and that reflects the recoveries of QRA works that we have submitted, and with that relates to the ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. So as officers have been doing excellent work getting those submissions in to recover the costs, we are now starting to see that those submissions being returned in those recoveries. If I move to the recurrent expenditures, it's quite immaterial variances that we have with materials and services, with the exception of depreciation. Depreciation still has a $1.6 million favourable variance. However, this trend is reducing as we expected it to, and we do fully anticipate the actual expenditure for depreciation to meet the budget by the end of year, as the assets are capitalised within our system and then the depreciation is applied. As mentioned previously in looking at the capital expenditure, there is an underspend this year to date, as Councillor Bolglari outlined, for a variety of factors, and monitoring the capital delivery and the forecast reprioritising of capital projects is a key focus for officers across the organisation, and does remain so. In moving to the statement of financial performance, as I mentioned previously, the main variance here in the cash balance is largely due to where we have received capital grant revenue, so we recognise that as in our cash balances, but not necessarily recognised as revenue in the comprehensive income statement, because when it's tied to specific projects, we need to recognise the revenue in line with the project delivery, but we still absolutely recognise the cash balance that we have. Through you, Chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak further to the April monthly financial report.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers against? Any questions? With that, I'll put the motion. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bolglari, we can do the sum up.
I would like to sum up, thank you, because I'd just like to publicly give a shout out to our staff, because councillors are listening to our staff in our briefings and our workshops, And it's interesting how they are reprioritising work, changing processes. They are really working hard to maintain the levels of service and delivery which we presently have. And given the present challenges, which we hear about on the radio and the TV, every day, and the dollars certainly aren't stretching as far as they used to, I'd just like to thank them for their resilience and some really innovative changes which they've implemented to help get through. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boglari. So with that, I'll put the motion. Councillor Talty?
For.
That's carried unanimously. 13.2 is the 2025-26 second budget review. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation or any other motion? Councillor Boglari, the officer's recommendation? Yes. Seconded, Councillor Bishop. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Boglari?
I would, because as I just said, our staff are doing good jobs. I think this is showing how they are changing. As we have said, that throughout the year there's continual monitoring of project delivery, works completed both operationally and through our CapEx program. It has happened again this year due to the various challenges which we've already mentioned. They have affected both works programs. And it's become obvious that our capital works won't all be done, so Council can carry them over to the next financial year. This revised budget reflects Council doing such a process of not proposing to draw down forecasted debt amount of 15.2 million due to the capital program being reduced. Because in this budget review, there's 23 million of CapEx being carried forward, reducing the overall program to 126 million. This is just one example of how staff are working to reprioritise. And regarding the OPEX budget, there's been an additional 15.5 million of work requested. A major percentage of this is an additional 9.3 million for continual works at Judy Holt land site. However, a point to note is the recognition of operating revenue in the second budget review, which largely offsets this additional OPEX. Per the statement of comprehensive income on page 50 of the agenda, and also shown in the operating statement page 151 of the agenda, there's an additional 14.82 million recognised as additional operating revenue. Majority of this relates to the forecast QRA recoveries from ex-TC Alfred, as shown in the grant subsidies and contributions line, as well as an uplift in fees, mainly due to increased volumes in development applications and plumbing fees, as well as recognising the uplift in interest revenue. The various financial statements of this budget review transparently illustrates all these financial changes, but it just shows the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, not just with our financial teams, but also with our business unit, Water and Waste. They're revising their financials too, but also every aspect of Council revises their delivery processes and their financial process throughout the year to ensure we're doing the best in this area. So I think this second budget review is very clear, the way it's set out and illustrates that.
Thank you, Councillor Boglari. Before I go on to speakers against, would anyone like Sandra to present on that?
Oh, I meant to refer to that too, sorry.
Okay. Could we just have the Executive Group Manager for Financial Services and CFO just do a presentation on the budget overview, please? Thanks.
Thank you, through you, Chair. As outlined by Councillor Boglari, the report shows a revised operating deficit of 8.8 million to the current revised budget, reflecting a net movement of $639,000 overall. As outlined, the budget review, and as spoken to previously, does recognise and reflect the uplift in recurrent revenue, largely the fees, the recoveries associated with the QRA claims for ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, the fees, predominantly planning and plumbing fees, and the increase in interest revenue. This is offset by increased expenditure, and that expenditure is mainly recognised in reforecasting Council's landfill remediation provision requirements that we are required to do under the accounting standards. As also mentioned, the capital works monitoring and reprioritising, there has been a reduction in the 25-26 capital works program, with this largely being recognised as a carryover to be proposed in the 26-27 budget year. Associated with that is a movement of capital grants of $16.45 million, which will also be deferred. They are tied to the capital works that are being carried over. So the grants aren't being given up, so to speak. They're a deferral of when we actually recognise those grants as revenue. Lastly, as also mentioned, the second budget review also reflects Council not electing to draw down the budgeted loan borrowings in alignment with the capital delivery program, as we've spoken about before. But lastly, in summing up, with the second budget review, all financial sustainability measures continue to meet or exceed targets, with the exception of the operating surplus ratio. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have any speakers against? We'll go to questions. Councillor, you'll speak against? Councillor Hughes?
Thank you. In speaking against, I want to come back and thank Councillor Boglari for her overview too in the lead up, because it's really helpful, and the work you're doing behind the scenes on that is appreciated. Thank you. I'm speaking against with the decision not to draw down on that forecast, as we've said, on that budget loan that we were looking to get of 15.2 million. And why I'm speaking against that is because I'm really concerned about that knock-on effect. If we're going to be carrying over the works in our capital budget, as we've said, and I'm picking on, I don't know, whatever item it is, that we have budgeted for this financial year, and included in our budget this financial year was 15.2 million, and we're going to carry the works over, but we're not drawing down the money. The impact to our budget next year is a worry to me already before we even start, and now we're going to carry over works, but we're not drawing down the money that we were going to help contribute to that. So in speaking against, I'm highlighting to community my concern regarding that matter. I'm really concerned about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Speaker for Councillor Bishop.
Yeah, thank you. In speaking for, I'll also partly address what I believe Councillor Hughes is rightfully raising as a concern, that the original intent was to draw down $15 million. But where I'm comforted is that we would only draw that down if we needed to do those works. If we were drawing down that money, not doing the work, but incurring the interest associated with that loan, I think that would be more of a concern. And I am comfortable and confident that officers have got that all in train, noting, as mentioned by Councillor Boglari and our CFO, the complex nature of the whole of organisation work that's going on behind the scenes. Also, in speaking for this second budget review, if I may, can I ask us to refer to page 2 of 12, which is page 51 of our report, and it's in the section of the capital funding statement, which is, if we zoom into the bottom column, that just there, and go to the line which is the capitalised goods and services line. So that's, if we move across the capitalised goods and services line, correct, that line there, if we move to the proposed changes in the second budget review, the reason I'm highlighting this specifically is this is exactly where all of those various carryover reprioritised capital delivery amounts have been aligned and identified. And if I may, I would like to take a moment to ask a question, having spoken with the CFO about this, just to describe the sort of work that's encompassed in that number of 24,946, which is similar to what's referenced in our report, and just describe the order of magnitude of the work that's involved in that, because this is the first time that this has actually been brought to our attention. The reason I'm speaking for this, it's a good example of transparency of where officers are bringing extra clarity to us. So the first question I'd like to ask through the Chair, if I may, is just on what's gone into those numbers.
I'm just going to do for and against, and then I'll do questions. So, Sandra, if you can remember that question. Do we have any speakers?
The second part then to that is that drawing on this newly reflected number, which I very much welcome as we go through the second budget review, where I'd like to look at the end of the year, when we do the closeout of this annual year, we look at the reconciliation of these numbers that have changed through the course of the year so that we can reconcile how much we actually did spend and where there were some anomalies that might encourage us to review our future capital expenditure planning going forward. So I'd just like to ask where that will be reflected at the end of year in our subsequent reports, noting that this is a new and welcome addition.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any speakers against? No? Okay. Sandra, would you be able to answer those questions for Councillor Bishop? And then...
Thank you. And through you, Chair, thank you, Councillor Bishop, for the question. So what sits behind the figures that have been pointed out on the screen is a detailed submission listing of the actual projects themselves. So we do have that detailed submission listing of each of the projects and the jobs that are associated with that amount. That's drawn from our system. It's had the evaluation of officers to say they are works in train. It's just the timing now of delivery for those. So there is quite a rigorous gateway to go through to be able to be identified as a carryover, because obviously we need that assurance of deliverability. It's now just saying the deliverability has moved into the next financial year for a variety of reasons. What I'll also draw out is the corresponding capital grants and subsidies. So of that $25,000 of the capitalised goods and services representing those individual projects, of that there's associated capital grants of $16.45 million, of which we've spoken about before. So we defer the expenditure in terms of a carryover, but then we also note that there's $16.45 million worth of funding associated with those specific projects, and that also is deferred and aligned with the capital expenditure.
And the subsequent question was, as this is a new number reflected here, at the reconciliation month 13, when we finish this year, where will that be reported, and will there be granularity on that?
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Councillor Bishop. So when we do our final end of year statements and audit, and then when we move into next financial year and we bring forward the carryover budget review, there'll be that reconciliation of, as I said, we have the specific list of projects that sit behind this number, and they will be flagged as being identified from carryover projects from this year into next, as well as any others that may arise. So we'll have that detailed comparison and that detailed view.
Thank you. I think that's really important as we move to the 2-year rolling plan going forward. So thanks for that, and thanks to the officers.
Councillor Colley, did you have a question? Sandra, could you just explain the debt and why we don't draw down on it when we can't do the work? Just in response to Councillor Hughes's...
Thank you, Chair. So with, as I've just mentioned, with the works that are being carried over, the 25 million, of that 16.45 million is funded through capital grant revenue. So there's that variable of around 7 million or so. What we will do now through this budget development process is actually, as we do each year, is work through and reforecast what our borrowing requirements will be, taking into account what has for the future, taking into account is there any associated borrowing requirements with the carryovers that have been identified today, as well as what that new capital works program looks like for 26-27. So it was really that reflection of looking at the alignment of capital delivery, looking at the quantum of borrowings, and then knowing that we were coming into and could identify with this level of confidence carryovers, and then knowing we're at the point in the process where we reforecast what those debt requirements will be going into 26-27 financial year.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions, councillors? No, Councillor Boglari, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to also speak to not drawing down debt. It'd be like I'm going to go and buy a car and I'll get my loan now, but I don't get the car till next year and I'm sort of paying it off. We don't draw down debt and start using paying it off when we're not using it. So it's very important that we are very cognizant of when works are happening and when we're going to get that funding through. Again, this is a point in time, as Councillor Bishop mentioned. The end of the year annual report is the one that we're all aiming towards getting the best figures we possibly can at.
Thank you. With that, I'll put the motion. Councillor Tolte?
Or
That's a division. So 4 is Councillor Boglari, Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Golay, Councillor Hewlett, when I spit your words out. Thank you. Councillor Hewlett, Councillor Rendels, Councillor Colley, Councillor Bishop, Councillor Tolte online, and myself. And against is Councillor Hughes. Thank you. Item 13.3, the Operational Plan Performance Report, January to March 2026, Quarter 3. We have a mover for the officer's recommendation. Moved Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Boglari. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Mitchell?
Very briefly, Chair, thank you. Yes, to the operational plan, the report before us focuses on the performance from 1st of January through to 31st of March, Quarter 3, and reports on the progress and status of the enormous breadth and depth of activities going on across the city. Probably just simply to highlight that of the 67 projects, that 51 are on track, 12 are complete, and only 4 are being monitored. And I think that's a pretty great record. So, yeah, thank you. I don't want to pick out today any specific projects, but would encourage the community, as always, to go have a read of the operational plan and have a look at their areas of interest across the number of themes and goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Any speakers against? Questions? You have a question, Councillor Colley?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Executive General Manager for Major Projects. Catalyst Project 2.1.1 refers to the Redlands Coast Regional Sport and Recreation Precinct, a project which is of great interest to our community. There's some commentary in that report there which effectively shows that there has been little progress since the last quarter, the last progress update came to Council. Would you be able to just provide a little bit of additional commentary about what is happening with the precinct there, please?
Thank you. Through to you, Dan.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Councillor Colley. So you're correct. Council made a self-referral of the project through to EPBC. The referral remains under consideration by the Australian Government, and until the matter is resolved, essentially, the Sports Precinct Master Plan, no works can commence on site until that's resolved. So officers are still having ongoing engagement with the federal government around the referral. However, there isn't currently a legislated timeframe on when that decision needs to be made. We're also looking at the current changes in the legislation and what that could mean for the project as well. So, yeah.
So we're effectively just in a holding pattern until we do receive some further advice from the federal government. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're still having discussions with them on the way forwards with our projects.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bishop, you have a question?
I do. So I think it's the next item, actually, on Catalyst Project CP 2.2, which is on page 14 of 70. Just with regard to the Birkdale Community Precinct, Willards Farm and Tingalpa Creek Corridor, items A, B and C have all got live active works happening. I just wonder if it's possible for officers to give a brief update on each of those, just because there's a fair bit going on in each of those spaces. If that's possible, the first one being the EPBC referral, second being regard Willard Farm, and the third just being the enabling works.
Councillor Colley, he's referring to
I'm referring to a
Birkdale.
different item. I'm referring to the Birkdale Community Precinct, not the sports.
I think, Councillor Bishop, though, you may be referring to the recent works. I'll confirm, though, because this is the report for January to March, whereas I think most of the things that you're referring to are the next quarter.
That's true. I think.
So we're just speaking to this quarter.
Well, okay. I'll thank you. I will just note the amazing work that officers have done with regard to the activation of the Willards Farm, which is very live and present. So thank you.
We'll hold that question over till
June
one,
thank you.
to the
Thank
June,
you.
to the next.
There is a lot going on in that space, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Are there any other questions? No. With that, I'll put the motion. Oh, Councillor Mitchell, please sum up. I need to circle that.
No, quite comfortable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Mitchell. With that, I'll put the motion. Councillor Talty?
For.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 14.1, Redlands Coast Community Safety Action Plan. Do I have a Councillor Mitchell? You'd like to move the officer's recommendation?
Yes, thanks, Chair.
And second by Councillor Boglari. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Mitchell?
Yes, I will speak to it. No, just shadow that I believe we have officers maybe speaking to the report as well, but I may speak to it first. Mayor, councillors, today I'm really pleased to speak in support of the Redlands Coast Community Safety Action Plan, 26 to 28. It's a really practical, balanced and community-informed plan that will guide how we continue to support community safety and wellbeing across the city. It's really important from the outset and reflects a lot of our discussions. We acknowledge that community safety concerns are real. While our city remains comparatively safe, many residents do feel less safe than they did just a few years ago. Those perceptions matter. And this plan recognises that we must address both the actual safety and how safe people actually feel in their daily lives. The plan has been shaped through strong and genuine feedback and engagement with our community and stakeholders. Nearly 500 pieces of feedback were received through surveys, workshops and direct consultation. Importantly, it includes input from, of course, Queensland Police, community organisations, First Nations representatives and service providers. This is a plan built with the community and not just for our community. It's also a plan that's grounded in real evidence. Officers have drawn on Queensland Police Service data, benchmarking across the whole of the region of South East Queensland and detailed analysis of local trends. This ensures that the actions that we plan to take and are taking are targeted, practical and focused on the issues that matter most, particularly antisocial behaviour, safety in public spaces and strengthening social cohesion. The plan is clearly structured around 4 key focus areas: people, places, partnerships and participation. Together, these priorities aim to build stronger connections, create safer spaces and empower our community to be a part of the solution. A key strength of the plan is strong emphasis on partnering, and also on effective delivery. Community safety is absolutely a shared responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. This plan brings together council, Queensland Police, state agencies, community, organisations and local business to deliver a coordinated and sustainable outcome. Importantly, it uses clear roles such as deliver, partner, facilitate and advocate to ensure accountability and effectiveness. It's also important to be clear about where council's role starts and stops. We are not the lead agency for law enforcement. And this plan respects that. Queensland Police remain responsible for policing. Our role is to provide leadership in our spaces, support prevention and education, manage our public areas effectively, and advocate for our community where needed. We will stay firmly within our policy and also our own responsibility lanes, while still playing an important role in community safety. Overall, this is a well-balanced, evidence-based and deliverable plan. It recognises community concerns, strengthens partnerships and focuses on the practical actions that will make a real difference. I'd like to acknowledge the work of our officers in preparing this plan and councillors for their tremendous input, and commend it to council. I support the officers' recommendation and would encourage councillors to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. We did ask the General Manager for Community and Customer Services to present on this as well, so I'll just hand over to Brooke to do that briefly. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Mitchell, for the summary. I think you've summarised the plan really well, so I won't go through that again. I think just probably to highlight again this, given I guess the plan responds directly to the local safety profile that we have at Redlands, which is really safe compared to many other areas. So the level of response that our council invests in community safety is in line with that. So we have a small support role, but it's an important role, and this plan gives us, I guess, to make sure that the resources that we do allocate are really targeted and impactful and respond directly to our council's need. We do have some really clear policies in place in council already in terms of our role around community safety. It's very much sticking, as Councillor Mitchell mentioned, in terms of our remit, so making sure that our public spaces, that we manage our parks and things are safe, that our residents feel safe coming into them, whether that's lighting or making sure that our vegetation allows for those clear sight lines or managing our graffiti. And also we take our partner role really seriously as well. So we're good partners. We enjoy a great partnership with our local Queensland Police Service, as do our councillors. We have regular meetings with them where we're making sure that we're sharing information that we have available. The CCTV network that we do have in terms of our public spaces streams live to our local police stations so that they can respond to their use cases and their responsibilities. So I guess to Councillor Mitchell's point, I guess getting that balance right between managing our own assets safely and also being a really supportive partner to our lead agencies. So happy to take questions, but yeah, thanks, Councillor.
Go speakers against first. No? Questions? Councillor Endorse.
Yes, thank you. If I may put a question via the chair to the General Manager, please. One of the issues that happens a lot, and it's partly reflected here, is as the layer of government closest to the community, people see you in the local supermarket, on the bus, walking down the street. The range of things that people come to me about are road use, speeding, drugs, violence on the jetties, mental health issues. You know, clearly we've drawn a line around that in terms of these are not council responsibilities. In developing the plan, can you explain just a little bit more about the process of engagement with the lead agencies in making sure that those boundaries or delineation of roles is clearly understood by all parties? Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you through you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Endorse, for your question. And we do have Jen from our Strengthening Communities team here today that can provide more detail as required in terms of the consultation process. But it was quite an extensive consultation process, not only with our community and I guess key stakeholder community groups, but also with our Queensland Police Service and other key state partners. Part of that process was not only consulting with them about what they're seeing and hearing and how they would like to inform council's support role, but also provided that look back in terms of opportunities or concerns or actions or suggestions that our community were raising that might be relevant for those agencies to take forward so that they weren't lost. So there was an opportunity to be able to provide that circle back, make sure that all of the comments and concerns were captured, and then I guess, if you like, reallocated to the responsible agencies as opposed to council taking on all of those within our plan. And again, they do form a big part of our advocacy and partner role. So where there are things that we have heard where we can leverage or support those agencies, we're taking those as more of an advocacy role. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Councillor. We did have a series, of course, of focus groups, surveys, and all of that in terms of a consultation process as well.
Thank you, Brooke. Did you have another question, Councillor Randall?
Just a follow-up question on that for clarification. So we would feel comfortable as the council and representing ratepayers that the lead agencies responsible for these other areas have had full input into our plan and are supportive of the direction we're going.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor. Absolutely, in terms of being key partners in informing the development of the plan, but also, I guess, to go beyond just the plan itself, we do have existing partnerships and governance arrangements set up that the officers participate in all year round and have done for some time with the support of this council. We also have regular addresses by our Queensland Police Service representatives at this level as well to our councillors regularly to make sure that we're providing, if there are concerns or emerging trends that we're seeing in terms of community safety for our city, we've got lots of avenues to raise those. But yes, our partners have been key in terms of developing the plan, but also being aware of those actions that fall outside of council, that they will, it informs their actions going forward as well.
Thank you, and thank you for the good work that you and your team have done.
Thank you. Councillor Bishop?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the summaries as well. Given that community safety is primarily a state function, which is all agreed and has been reiterated here, and I think it's very important. When I look to this document, one of the things that I think is both important and really important for us to state around expectation management is regarding the perceptions of the state having the primary function here. And I wonder, my question through the chair to the group manager, general manager, is there any additional information above the report that we will do with our communications just to delineate and reinforce, as has been done here today, that separation and the primary focus being that the state function is the responsibility now that council is stepping into the fray in a way with the Community Safety Action Plan? Is there extra communication going out just to reinforce that and delineate it? It's touched on in the report, but there's a lot of partners and stakeholders. I think if we are delineating that, it's really important in our communications.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the question, Councillor Bishop. Yes, absolutely. So if Council approves the plan today, then we'll be working with our communications team around how we do communicate that to the community. And as you say, the plan itself is just one document. We've looking at the precursor or the information that we provide on Council's website where the plan will be present, and there's an opportunity for us to review some of that wording to make sure that it's really clear upfront in terms of Council's role and what this plan is actually delivering and the clarity that's providing in terms of Council's role. It also is part of, and it's reflected in some of the actions as well around our community education role, if you like. So I know councillors, but also our team do spend a lot of time clarifying where inquiries come to. So if it's hooning and things like that, that often will come to councillors who are a bit of a when in doubt point of call for our residents, making sure that both our information is really clear on our public facing information about how to report a crime, how to report some of these issues, but also in terms of information for councillors' officers to have, because I know you're often getting those those inquiries that come directly to you as well. So there's lots of opportunities for us to embed those messages within the delivery of the actual actions themselves as well. So if that answers
I really appreciate the efficiency of being able to allow the community to be able to go directly to the source of where the solution is, rather than creating a burden on our officers, because they do an amazing job under constrained circumstances. It's the state's responsibility. 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Councillor Mitchell, would you like to sum up?
Yes, I would, and thanks, councillors, for the good questions and officers for answering. In summary, again, I'll just say the report, I think, is really important in that it does answer some of those questions in setting those, really clear policy boundaries and responsibilities. Doesn't mean there won't be challenges moving forward in working with our agencies and with our state government. rather than summarise, I'd probably just like to end with some thank yous, and thank yous to our small but mighty team of community safety officers. I think they do incredible work and punch above their weight with incredible professionalism and empathy around the place. So can we get a better quality coffee in their work area, please? Would be good. It's budgets, everyone. I'd like to thank the police, local police, but also regional police and statewide for not only the day-to-day operations, but also the community safety and prevention officers they have, who do free audits of buildings and homes and things, and everyone in our community can reach out and do that. I think they do a wonderful job. Some of the agencies like Footprints that go out and look after some of the homeless people who are doing it tough and approach them for services, that's all part of people feeling safe and being safe, including those homeless people. I'd like to thank our state MPs, despite our strong advocacy and sometimes displeasure at some of the cost shifting, but we're really grateful for the services that they help to provide in the government, both in early intervention and enforcement, which all add to the to the end result of community safety. To our community, who are both reporting incidents but doing the right thing around their own homes and businesses, and their families and friends in helping to keep us all feeling safe and actually being safe. And I understand what Councillor Bishop's comment was, that it's the state's responsibility of safety, but I think policing is and crime prevention is, but I think safety is everyone's, but I appreciate the spirit with which that comment was offered. So with that, yes, I'd like to commend the report to Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. With that, I'll put the motion. Who's in favour? Councillor Tolte?
For.
That's carried unanimously. There are no reports from Infrastructure and Operations. There are no notices of intention to repeal or amend a resolution. Councillors, there are no notices of motion for today's meeting. I'm not aware of any urgent business, councillors. So we now move on to confidential items. In accordance with section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012, to discuss the matters listed in the agenda, we must move into closed session. So there are 8 confidential items on the agenda. So I'll just run through all the items and ask councillors to please raise your hand if you wish to discuss the particular item in closed session, and I will then go back and call for movers and seconders of those items. Register of fees and charges. Does anyone wish to discuss that in closed session? Nope. The Signature Events Attraction and Retention Fund. Property Management Arrangement Cleveland. Disposal of Land Russell Island. Redland's Investment Corp Financial Report for period ending 31st of March 2026. The Capalaba Town Centre Revitalisation Project. 2030 World Paddle Games. And the External Service and Efficiency Review Implementation. No? All right, councillors, can I have a mover that item 19.7, 2030 World Paddle Games be discussed in closed session to provide an update on the 2030 World Paddle Games in Queensland. This matter is considered to be confidential under section 254J3G of the Local Government Regulation 2012, and the council is satisfied that discussion of this matter in an open meeting would, on balance, be contrary to the public interest as it deals with negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government, for which a public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of the local government. Moved Councillor Colley, seconded Councillor Boglari. All those in favour that it's going to confidential? Councillor Tolte?
For.
That's carried unanimously. Councillors will now move a motion to move into closed session. So Sorry, Councillor Tolty, was there any other matters on those confidential items list that you would like to discuss in confidential?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder that the meeting moves into closed session to discuss the items that have been voted on to be discussed in closed session? Move Councillor Mitchell, seconded Councillor Golay. All those in favour?
4.
That's carried unanimously.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there's no one here. Even if there were, I'm using an earphone so no one could hear it and in a confidential place. Thank you.
Councillors, can I have a mover and a second that we move back into open session, please? Moved by Councillor Rendell, seconded by Councillor Colley. Those in favour? To come out of closed session. Councillor Tolty?
For.
That's carried unanimously.
For.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. All right, we'll move on to those resolutions now. Item 19.1, Register of Fees 2026. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Moved Councillor Hewlett, seconded Councillor Colley. Those in favour? Councillor Tolty?
For.
That's carried unanimously. And 19.2, the 2026 Signature Events Attraction and Retention Fund, applications for grant funding. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Moved Councillor Mitchell, seconded Councillor Boglari. Those in favour? Councillor Tolty?
For.
We have a division. Those in favour are Councillor Boglari, Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Golay, Councillor Hewlett, Councillor Rendles, Councillor Colley, Councillor Bishop, Councillor Tolty and myself. Those against are Councillor Hughes. Item 19.3, Property Management Arrangement Cleveland. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Moved Councillor Colley, seconded Councillor Hughes. Those in favour? Councillor Tolty?
For.
That's carried unanimously. Item 19.4, Disposal of Land on Russell Island. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Moved Councillor Rendles, seconded Councillor Mitchell. Those in favour? Councillor Tolty?
For.
That's carried unanimously. Item 19.5, Redland Investment Corporation Financial Report for period ending 31st of March. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Moved Councillor Boglari, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Tolty?
For.
That's carried unanimously. Item 19.6, Capella Bar Town Centre Revitalisation Project. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Moved Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Colley. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Tolty?
For.
That's carried unanimously. 19.7, the 2030 World Paddle Games. Do I have a mover for the alternate motion? Moved Councillor Colley, seconded by Councillor Rendles. All those in favour of the alternate motion? We have a division. Those in favour are Councillor Boglari, Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Golay, Councillor Rendles, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Colley, myself. Sorry, Councillor Tolty.
For.
And Councillor Tolty is for, and those against are Councillor Hewlett and Councillor Bishop. 19.8, External Service and Efficiency Review Implementation. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? 19.8 is not an alternate motion as far as I'm aware. I'll move Councillor Boglari, seconded by Councillor Golay. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Oh, sorry. Sorry. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Tolty?
For.
That's carried unanimously. Councillors, please ensure your attendance has been logged in diligent boards, and I will thank each and every one of you for assisting me in running a very efficient meeting today. I greatly appreciate it. I now declare the meeting closed at 12:17 p.m.